Great, so it's 2 o'clock. Welcome to the webinar. And this is a webinar with the purpose of introducing some of our lovely staff from the area of humanities. And today we will be talking about various things to do with the programs in that subject area, such as the content of the programs or the study experience, the kinds of things which programs might be looking for if you're applying to this kind of program, and possible career options for later on. My name's Rebecca. I work in the International Marketing and Recruitment team, and I'm also joined by my colleague Tim, who will be behind the scenes supporting with any questions that come in from anyone who's watching live. And I would like to invite our other panelists to introduce themselves. If you would like to introduce yourself, what you work with, and the programs or department that you represent. So maybe we can start with you, Kristina.
Thank you. I'm Christina Robertson. I'm the program coordinator of the master's program in Human Rights Studies at the Division of Human Rights Studies at the Department of History.
Thank you so much. And how about you, Åsa?
Hi, my name is Åsa Wikström. I'm an academic advisor at the Center for Languages and Literature. I myself have a degree in linguistics, but I can sort of answer questions for all our 3 programs here, language and linguistics, literature, culture, media, and the European Studies Master program.
Brilliant, thank you. And how about yourself, Anna?
Yes, hi, my name is Anna Burstedt. I'm an academic advisor at the Department of Arts and Cultural Sciences. I can mainly talk about our program in Visual Studies and the Master of Applied Cultural Analysis.
Brilliant, and that's actually the program which I'm a graduate from. So we already know each other a little. So I'm hoping that perhaps if there's some questions regarding that program, we can support students today. For those who are with us watching live, there is a Q&A option on this webinar. So in that Q&A, please do feel free to submit any questions that you might have. We'll try to go through some commonly asked questions from students anyway, but if you want to add any more, please do. And then also feel free to upvote any questions that are appealing to you or something that you would like us to answer. So let's get started with a couple of questions for our panel. Firstly, I'm going to ask, why do you think that a student who is interested in your subject area should apply to your particular program or programs? And that's for everybody. So maybe I can start with you, Anna.
Yes. Well, I think, of course, everybody should join our department and study our programs. Since we, well, no offense, colleagues, since we have a great composed programs, I would say, with a lot of both theoretical and practical issues. There's quite a lot where you can choose by yourself what you want to do, like for example work placement or choices, courses that you can choose completely by yourself, and of course the thesis. So there are a mix of completed courses, again, courses decided by us and courses that you can choose by your own. I can also say that I am at home with sick kids, so I have also some small people joining me, maybe.
Yeah, thank you so much for still joining us today. No, it's no problem at all. Thank you. We can pass over to one of our other colleagues, like Kristina.
So, in regards to the master's program in Human Rights Studies, we're in humanities. And we're also multidisciplinary. We have teachers from humanities, social sciences, and law. And our teaching is also really connected to the research that we conduct here. And this with the kind of teaching style, if you can call it that, with class discussions, group seminars. This gives students a great opportunity to study human rights in society and human rights role in political systems, institutions, organizations, activist groups. And then, of course, I would love to mention the building we're in, Luke's beautiful building, which is a great environment for students. There are places where you can study. There's a great library. You can book group rooms where you can meet up and discuss with your friends. So this is definitely reasons to apply.
Thank you so much. And Åsa?
Yes, also for the European Master, the Master of Arts in European Studies, I would just like Kristina emphasize that it's a program within the humanities. So you can study European affairs in different faculties, but in this Master of European Studies, we focus on the on people, on culture, identity, and communication. So it's a great program where you also get many opportunities to internships and to get to know the practical, the work area where you can go afterwards, after the program. So that's for the European Master. For the language and linguistic and literature, culture, media, the main thing is that it's very close to the new research. We are very close to the researchers who are doing new research in the areas. It's pretty small programs, so you really get to come close to the professors, and you can dig into things that you like. You can form the program, you can choose optional courses and make the program suit your interest in a high degree.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So I guess we could build on that a little, because one of the questions that students sometimes ask is is it possible to choose elective courses when studying in the program? And a couple of you have already kind of indicated that there is quite a lot of freedom in your programs. So I guess the answer to that is yes, you can choose and you can specialize. Would anybody like to go into that a little more?
I can start, because we have two. I have the differences between applied cultural analysis and the visual culture. In applied cultural analysis, there is one elective course of 15 credits, sorry. And for visual culture, there's a lot more. It's at least 3 courses for 15 credits, but there are also others that you can actually, change and try to modify or something like that. So there are different levels of this electiveness.
Great. And anyone else want to add anything about your programs and the kinds of choices you can make?
I can add that in the language and linguistics, you have up to 45 elective courses, but we make a difference between elective courses. They need to be in the area. They need to be on an advanced level and in language or linguistics. But then you can also choose 1 semester of optional courses. And that could be in another area. It could be, for example, what I know, human rights maybe. So if you have something that you want to fit in to your master degree thesis, you can add these optional courses. The literature, culture, media also have 30 credits, optional or elective courses. And for the Master of Arts in European Studies, they have 1 semester. Usually it's an internship this semester, but if you don't want to do an internship, you can also choose elective courses or optional courses.
Great. And on that topic of internships, is that something that all of you offer? Kristina, I wonder whether you want to speak about whether there's anything similar to an internship or an independent project that happens as part of the Human Rights Studies program?
Sure. So first, I would like to say that we have, when it comes to optional courses, we have a bit of a more set structure.
Okay.
So there are a few electives, but within humanities, and especially within human rights studies, that is. But then also for the third semester, you can choose to either do internship or do field work. So we have more of a set structure. So you can't study anything within the program. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
But yes, we do, for the third semester, students are supposed to do either field work for the thesis or do an internship.
And do you support the students to find that internship? Is there support available, or how do most people find that opportunity?
Well, students need to find the internships themselves, but we start to talk about it already by the end of the first semester, and then again during spring. And of course, give guidance and support of where to find them, how to find them, and so on. And the reason is that we think of the second year as a full year. So the internship, fieldwork, and thesis, we want students to encourage students to kind of combine them. And so this is why we start to talk about it really early, so students can start to think about what they want to write their thesis about. So also during the third semester, you already have a supervisor that can help during the third semester as well, that will supervise your master thesis.
Okay, that sounds great. And that sounds, to my knowledge, pretty similar to the Applied Cultural Analysis program, Anna. Would you like to explain a little bit about how that works as well?
Yeah, exactly. The work placement, we call it work placement instead of internship due to, well, some administrational reasons mainly. But it's the same thing. We introduce it quite early, since it's for the third semester, so the second year. And we encourage students to combine or start thinking about how it could be used during their thesis writing. So maybe collect material or stuff like that. So yeah, very similar to what you said, Kristina. I know for the visual culture, there isn't any work placement or internship. It's more about theoretical courses and kind of research preparation for becoming a PhD student, for example. But I know that a program that's not represented here in archaeology, that also is a master program that we have, also have a internship or work placement, with also the possibility to go abroad and do it, I think. So
yes.
I think that's also an interesting.
Yeah, very...
I don't know if anybody here is interested in the archaeological program, but there is this possibility at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do any of your other programs offer a study abroad option as part of the program? I'm thinking about the language ones perhaps, or I'm not sure.
Yes, of course we do. So the third semester is usually open for study abroad, and of course for the language and linguistics, but also the literature, culture, media, which is a program with specific language profiles. You can go abroad for exchange studies. In these two programs, the language and linguistics and the literature, culture, media, you cannot do an internship, however. So you can go abroad, but not for an internship. Yeah, in the European master,
a different kind of opportunity there.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the European master, you can also go abroad to take courses, but many of the internships are also made in different European nations, not only Sweden, but around Europe. And just as Kristina said, it's up to the student to find an internship, but by now we have a list of places where you can apply. So this usually works out fine.
That's great.
And they find really interesting internship, the students. So it's a nice opportunity, I think.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's good to say that you choose it by your own, also due to the fact that you all at this level have your own interest and what you want to do with your program, with your studies. So it's very hard for us to kind of give you an internship, and because that will never end up well, we know that, and then you won't be happy with us. And I would like to say, since we are talking a lot about international programs here, of course, we have almost every year, I would say, some students that kind of go home to do their internship in their home country, and also maybe take an elective course there if they want to prolongate their internship. But also that we have students that go abroad for the internship, go to they go to Malawi and places like Kenya, and really not the one that you might think of in the first place, but really interesting projects that you said, also things that you never thought about that they could do in the first place.
Definitely. And it seems like a theme is that there's a lot of a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of choice about where you specialize, and that of course would then go on to things like the internship and then ultimately the thesis. And regarding the thesis, from what you've already said, I understand that there is already support for that quite early on in terms of being able to support students to guide themselves towards the topic for their thesis. But is there anything that any of you would like to add about the way that the thesis works on any of those programs? Anything unusual or specific about that? Perhaps Osa? I don't know.
Well, just for the European Master, it's just like Anna and Kristina said, that you go on your third semester and you maybe do an internship, and then you work this into your thesis work. So you have a supervisor and you have an idea what to do with it. For the language linguistics and the literature, culture, media, you have the training, the methodology training, and the training in philosophy of science. You have that during the first 3 semesters, and in the third semester you start, finding your supervisor and figuring out what to do in your thesis work. And you can do a lot of different things. So we have a list of theses on our website, and the students do amazing things and very, very different things. So you can be like hardcore linguistic student and do very technical things, but you can also do things that are more to the literature side, maybe. To explore languages, so it's very much up to the students what they like to do. So I can just also explain that the language and literature master, the linguistic master, it's very hard to keep them apart here. It's a program we have maybe 14 different specializations open for each year. So we have maybe 25, 27 students. So you can understand that all the students are divided in different specializations, but they take classes together in different subjects. And the diversity is it's good for the students to see the other languages and students in the other languages. And I think this also makes the thesis very much more insightful, if that's a word in English.
Yeah.
So you can benefit from the different perspectives in the program. Yeah. But I think that maybe the thesis in the language and literature master programs are more theoretical than the one in the European master.
That would make sense given what we've just been discussing, the way that they work, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Perhaps we can actually build on what you were just saying about the number of students and the kind of picture that you have in your classrooms. I think that many students would like to hear about that. I just want to remind anybody watching as well that you are really welcome to ask questions in the Q&A. If you would like to, you can put forward a question either about a particular program or something more general about the humanities area. Just to remind you in case you're not aware. Anyway, yes, so back to the class picture. So you said that there was around maybe 27 people in the class for the language and linguistics program, is that right? But then that would be split into different specializations.
Yeah, so in the common courses, the courses that all students are required to take, we have like all the 27 or 25 students in the classroom. But then in each, the special course in Chinese literature is only the persons in Chinese, the Chinese specialization, and of course students. We have these freestanding courses in Sweden, so you can actually just apply for one course. So there might be other students in the course, and then we have, of course, exchange students. So maybe you are like 4 or 5 students in the special courses. So you have both the smaller courses and the bit, well, still small, but anyway, a bit less small courses.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things I think about some of these programs, is that they're relatively small class and you get to know everybody. Is the picture the same for the other programs within your areas? Maybe Kristina, how about the Human Rights Studies program?
We have about 20-25. We're a small program, and about 85% are international students. So in reality, it's perhaps 2 or 3 that are not international students, and then the rest is international students. And they come from all these different disciplines and subjects, and so it becomes very discussing and studying human rights in an environment like this is, of course, very interesting, because everyone brings their own perspective, and putting those perspectives in the academic environment, connecting them to current research is, and also, of course, from historical perspectives is very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be really fascinating actually to come with different perspectives on that particular topic as well. And that sounds to me like what I remember from the applied cultural analysis course as well. Anna, I don't know if you want to speak about that a little.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits also from all our programs and studying here, that it is kind of a multidisciplinary but also multi-international environment, that you get a lot of perspectives and a lot of different backgrounds in the programs, which of course can also be challenging. But I think it's a strength in the end, and it comes out that you get a lot of experience, that not only about the courses and the theories and stuff like that, of course, but also to argument and how to find your own identity in that sense. We also have approximately 20 to 25 students in both visual culture and applied cultural analysis. So quite small programs, but that's what we can also take care of, so to speak. And they come from all over the world. The program coordinator, my colleague, she has a map of the world where she's kind of coloring all the countries that we have had represented in the program.
That's great.
Can I also comment upon this about what the things that you come with different backgrounds. You come with you have studied different things before you come to the program, and then you're trying to kind of mold everything together in the applied way. And I think that's also the interesting thing, how to make everything applicable for society, for culture, for human life, so to speak. because I normally get this question as well, because we have a collaboration with Copenhagen. There is one applied culture analysis program in Copenhagen as well. And we have exchange with them. They come to us, we come to them, but it is two different systems completely. They're different programs. So if you want to apply to Sweden, you apply to Sweden. If you want to apply to Copenhagen, you apply to Copenhagen. You can, of course, apply to both. That's also possible. But just because there's sometimes some confusion about that.
Yeah, thank you. I was also going to ask whether, like, what are the most common questions that you get? And perhaps that kind of leads us on to thinking about applications and how that works. So you could either say what the most common query that you get about applying is, or the most common mistake, whichever you feel is most useful for anybody who might be watching. Maybe we can start with you, Kristina.
I will answer both of them, if that's okay.
Perfect.
So,
yes, that's great.
Because they're kind of
they're linked.
Yeah, they are. So very common. A very common question is, do I need to have a law degree in order to apply for a program? Because we are often confused with international human rights law, and you don't. In fact, a degree in law might not in itself meet the requirements to our program. And I think the most common mistake, and I can understand this because you have information in so many places, both at university admission, Lund University, and then our websites as well, are more program-specific websites. And I think the most common mistake is that applicants don't read the entry requirements in full. So they see that these are the degrees that are required, but then they don't read the rest. So I think that would be my advice to everyone. Just read the entry requirements, and also, of course, the program-specific documents.
Yes, very good tips there. And I was just thinking, perhaps, Tim, we could bring up a link for everybody with the list of programs that is categorized under humanities on the website, because on those program pages is where you find that information, and you should be very careful to read that really carefully. And also, how about you?
I can't really think of a common question that is not a mistake. so the questions are usually all over the place, of course, and it's good. You should ask many questions. The most common mistake is that, I think it's two maybe. One is that the language literature and the literature culture media, the language linguistics and the literature culture media programs are both advanced studies building on a bachelor in the same subject. So you cannot come to these programs if you studied something completely else before. You need to have done literature or linguistics or language in your bachelor to build on the knowledge you have from the bachelor programs. One common mistake is to think that you can become a teacher in Sweden. So in many countries, if you have a master's degree in English, you can work as an English teacher. Not so in Sweden. You can take a master in English linguistics in Sweden and maybe go back to a country where you can use this degree to work as a teacher. But you cannot work in Sweden as a teacher, because in Sweden we have these very strict ways. Do you want to become a teacher? You do the teacher program and you get a teaching degree. You cannot do just something else. So that is something that I often need to explain to the kind of international students who are already living in Sweden. So they are very aware of that this is not the case. That's one common misunderstanding. One other thing that many misses is that for the English specializations, both in the linguistics and the literature masters, you need to do an Ielts test. So even if you had English as a specialization in your bachelor, you need to do the Ielts test anyway. So do our own students. Even if they had the bachelor here at Lund University, they need to do the Ielts test to be eligible for the English specialization. So these are two common mistakes.
Those are some really useful tips. Thank you. So there's a few things there that are really important. Firstly, that you must have already got some kind of specialization in these subjects before you move on. Secondly, that you can't just become a teacher straight after. And thirdly, that you will need to add a specific Ielts test for those language programs that are focused on language. And I think I just want to add, before we come to you, Anna, I just want to add that for anybody who's watching who hasn't yet familiarized yourself with the general process to apply for studies in Sweden, if you're applying for an international program taught in English, everybody must prove their English proficiency to a certain level, but the requirement for the language specific programs is even higher than that. So there is another, that's right, isn't it? Also,
only
so
for the English specializations in both programs. So if you apply for the Chinese specialization, it's the same English requirements as for all the other international programs. But for the English specialization, you need to be just a little bit better.
That's really helpful to know. And Anna, can we go to you with your common mistakes? I guess you already said one question, which is, what's the difference between the Copenhagen program and the Swedish program? But is there any other question?
Yes, I think I have like three most common questions. The first one is if the question is about if they are eligible, that the background, if they have a degree in this or that, English literature or philosophy or whatever, and as long as it is in humanities or social scientists, you are. So that's one thing. The other thing is about the statement of purpose. Since you have to send in a statement of purpose, and it's about what should they write and how long should it be. And I normally say 1 page, tell us why we should choose you and why you want to take this program. I mean, the curriculum, we can read that in the curriculum vitae. More explanations about your interest and why we should choose you. The most common mistake, I would say, and it's linked maybe to the test, the English tests also, for example, is that people forget to upload documents in time, that they don't fulfill the requirements within uploading. And that also said, it's a lot of coughing here.
That's no problem.
It's about no, you don't have to have finished your degree when you apply for the program. You can apply for the program now in October to January, and then when the program starts in August, you have to have the diploma. That's also a common question.
Yeah, I can maybe pick up on those 2 points there with so again, it's more of a general application issue, but like it's still very much worth noting that there is a deadline to upload your documents. And as Anna mentioned, the general period to apply for next year's entry is between 18th of October and 17th of January. And then you have until the 1st of February to upload those documents. And that deadline is not flexible. So if you miss that deadline and you haven't uploaded the documents which are requested, such as your proof of English, your proof of previous qualifications, and any of the program-specific documents, what we call program-specific documents, like the statement of purpose, for example, then unfortunately that is going to lead to a problem with the application. Yeah, regarding the statement of purpose, that's something which is quite commonly requested for many of our programs. And again, it's really worth reading the program pages very carefully to check which program specific documents are requested. I don't know if either of you, Åsa or Kristina, would like to comment on any specific documents that you request in your programs that you sometimes see questions about or issues with.
Well, I do get questions about the statement of purpose, but it's on our website. So it says, really, I actually have it here. So it's 500 words maximum. And then it's also stated what's supposed to be included. So do you want me to read them out loud, or do we just...
No, that's fine. We can just make sure that we direct everybody to really carefully read those instructions. So you go from the program pages, which Tim has already shared in the chat, and then you read down to the section on what documents you need to submit. And there's also usually a link on the page for more information about the program. So please do carefully read through those program pages and the guidance which is there. Yeah.
And then we also have 2 letters of recommendation, but again, you can find information on that on the website.
Brilliant. And for you, Osa, is there anything other than the English grammar, which we previously spoke about, that is very specific?
Yes. Yeah, there is a lot. For the European Master, you have just as for the human rights, you have a statement of purpose and 2 recommendation letters. And the most important is to upload something. So if you don't do that, you will not get elected, you will not get a place in the program. So I know it can be hard to get recommendation letters, but try your best because you really need them to get admitted. For the language and linguistics, you need to show that you have a bachelor thesis. And this is part of your eligibility. So it's not only the selection, but you need the thesis to be eligible for the program. And this is somewhat complicated because many students, they didn't start doing the thesis yet. In January 15 or 17 this year, the last day of application, you might not even have started thinking about your bachelor thesis. So then we require an outline of the thesis. Of course, you can apply, but you need to show that you are going to do a thesis, so we know that. But I think everything is in place in the program pages, so you can read what you need to do.
Brilliant, thank you. And yeah, so that's an interesting point from both of you there about the final year situation. So if you're in the final year of your bachelor's, then it can be different depending which program you're applying to as to how that affects your application. So for the programs that you're just speaking about, then you will need to think about how that affects your ability to give a writing sample, for example, whereas most programs, it's as simple as filling out a form to explain that you're in your final year. And then, as Anna said, making sure that you have that final transcript or final degree certificate before you actually begin the program. But for more information about that, perhaps Tim could share actually the page about final year applications, just for anybody who's in that particular position. And it is, again, really important to note that every program has different requirements in terms of these program specific documents, and you really do need to look at each individual program page to make sure that you understand what you need to do for that specific program. We actually have a question in the Q&A from Jaya Sundara, who says, I am 48 years old. Will I be able to apply for a master's in your program? Would anybody like to answer that question? Or shall I just answer from my understanding, which is that you're very welcome, Jaya Sundara. There is no age limit. And that's more of a general thing, I guess, rather than a program specific question. But you are very welcome to apply. The only issue that you may face might be making sure that you can still submit your documentation from when you previously studied, and also just making sure you are eligible for the programs based on what's on those program pages. So again, really important to read those. Great. Okay, so
I just want to say that we have students in all ages in our programs, from early 20s to 70s. So yeah, you are welcome.
Great to know. Wonderful. Okay. I will ask perhaps one more question about applications, and that would be, what kind of students are you looking for your program in general, which is quite a difficult question because I know that every student is individual, and we've sort of touched on some of this already. So the fact that they would need to be for your programs also, that it would be good if they actually have a background in those areas, for example, whereas for the Masters in Applied Cultural Analysis, it's more general humanities or social science based background. But would anyone like to add anything else about what they're looking for specifically when you're looking at a student? I could say Anna.
I think that was a really hard question.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, what kind of students are we looking for? Well, I think we'll look for students that are interested in some kind of applied cultural analysis, culture processes and how it works, how people can work with that. And that can be from so different backgrounds. You can have that. Often in a selection, for example, application, we sometimes look at if people students have taken any courses in ethnology or social anthropology, because we think that's also good to have included in the degree. But otherwise, I mean, curious, interested, ambitious students, that's what we're looking for, that have some kind of wish to not change the world, but at least contribute to some kind of societal change, I would say.
Brilliant. And for you, Kristina?
Difficult question, but yes, well, if you have a background that is not in human rights studies, you need to show that you have a specialization enough to start the program. And this is, of course, important as well, because part of the main criteria of selection is the result from courses that are of relevance for our program. So, of course, that is important. But otherwise, I mean, students that are interested in human rights in all their complexity, I would say, from different perspectives, not only one, but from historical, philosophical, ethical, political, and of course also legal perspective, and combined all these perspectives. Someone that is really interested in doing this is of course a student that we look for as well.
Brilliant, yeah. And Osa?
I think Anna said it earlier on that we are happy to have students who have their own idea of what to do with the knowledge afterwards. So you talked about it in connection to the the master thesis, but I think all programs who require a statement purpose look for students who can express what they want to do with the knowledge, why they want to learn, why they want to do the program. So this is important, that you can show that you have really read the syllabus, that you have read the description and connect to it. So that's one thing I think we like to see in our students. We like the diversity, of course. It's nice to have students from different parts of the world. In the linguistic and literature master, we also need to look at the theoretical background. We need to know that you have the base knowledge, that you are familiar with the concept. We can't teach you what syntax or semantics is. You need to know that before you start. So that's what we're looking for.
Brilliant. And actually that kind of answers something which was just asked in the Q&A, which was from Hemat, who asked, so if I studied a total different program, that will affect my application. And I think you've basically just answered the reason why that's important, because you need to have some kind of basis. For many of our programs, you need to have some kind of basis of knowledge that relates to that program. Now, of course, it can vary again from program to program. Some are open to many different backgrounds and some are not. So again, I have to advise you, Hannah, to have a look at the specific program that you're interested in, look on the program page and check what those requirements are, because that should guide you as to whether or not you have a program which makes you eligible. But if it's totally different, not related at all, then yes, that might mean that you're not eligible. For most of our programs, they at master's level are building on what you've previously studied. So that's just very important to note, I would say. Brilliant.
And I think it's important to stress there, I mean, the requirements for entrancy, I mean, they're not just there for stopping people to get in. It's also about taking in students that we want to provide you the possibility to finish your studies. So you have a certain level of English, for example, and you have a subject background that is more likely something that you can, from the beginning, take part of the program and the lectures. So it's also about taking care of you as students, I would say, not putting you in the position or not being able to follow the education.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, Anna. I'm going to ask a question about the study environment before we then move on to one or two final questions about careers. So I want to ask, again, this might also be a little bit of a difficult question because as we've discussed, there are various different modules and different things that you will do, courses that you will do through the studies. But if you could kind of generally describe a typical week, what that might look like on your programs, and a related question perhaps in terms of the study environment, what the relationships with the teachers are like, so how the faculty and the students interact. Perhaps we can start with you, Kristina.
This is a difficult question.
Yes.
But our program, and also I think all programs within humanities, actually have a kind of how should I express this? So a very open, like open door policies and things like that. The student can, if we're at the office and students walking by, you can see if you can come in and ask a question, and that's for all staff. And then since for our program, and I guess also all humanities programs, since the interaction between teachers and students, the discussions and debates and things like that is very important for the learning process. I think, I'm not sure, perhaps Anna and Åsa can help, but it's, I would say, an open and kind environment. Of course, it's academic, so there are things that
I normally students find it quite informal when they come here. Like, okay, you don't have to call this teachers by the professor or title or whatever. It's first name, and it can always also be a nickname. And it's quite surprising or shocking for some students, and to just not being used to this in this kind of relation with the teachers. And we have, I mean, I know also we have a lot of social gatherings, meeting up just to have a coffee together or chatting together, also with the teachers, not only the students. So the informality, I think, is quite new for a lot of students. But as for a typical week, I think it's hard to say, but I can say what it's not. It's not to, you don't have to be in lecture from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a lot about group work, maybe, or self-studies. There are a few lectures and maybe hand-ins or things you should do in between. So it's a process, of course, the whole a week, for example, but it's not scheduled from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. At least not at our department.
Yeah, I remember being quite surprised at first by that level of self-led study and group work and things like that. We're always doing something, always busy, but like you said, not always in the lecture theatre. And for you also, could you perhaps talk a little bit about what it might look like or the culture?
First, I would like to say something about this informal connection to the teachers. So this is something that you learn very, very quickly in Sweden, that you don't call Professor Strömquist, you call him Sven. But this does not mean that you're best friends with Sven. And this is actually pretty hard because it looks on the surface as a very easy way. Everyone calls each other for the first name, but you need to find the right level of how to connect to people, because there is a distance. It's still your professor, and you cannot, just because you call him by first name, you're not best friends. But you will learn that quickly also. And all the students, we have a mixed group of students. So you will always have the Swedish students who think this is normal. Maybe they can't explain it because they didn't look into themselves, and they can't maybe understand it when they think of it. So, but when it comes to a normal week, I think, we don't have that much scheduled lectures. We have classes maybe 4 times a week, 2-3 hours. And the rest of the time you have maybe group work or project work, but you also have as you said, Rebecca, self-led studies. And you will need to learn how to be your own boss and to, find the discipline to do all your reading by yourself. But I think we have, as Kristina said, we have wonderful premises here, nice places to sit and study, and we encourage all the students to make study groups and sit together. So usually you study with your classmates and learn from each other and help each other to do all things that you need to do.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and one benefit of this, I would say, yes, self-led studies, is that you also become a very good project manager of your own life. So it's a skill that you practice a lot, and you gain a lot of confidence in doing that. I would say that is good for you afterwards.
That's brilliant. So if I kind of ask one more question about our sort of students' prospects after they study, because I know that's a common question, what kinds of jobs people go on to do, or whether research is an option after they complete their studies. Perhaps we could kind of quickly go around and see what kinds of things you might expect students to do after the programs. So Kristina, would you like to begin?
So I'm going to answer this kind of general from our bachelor program, because our program started fall 2019.
Yes.
So our first alumni just graduated. But we know that there is a need for experts in human rights, both in public and private sector, and of course NGOs or non-profit sectors as well. And many of our bachelor students, and of course the prospects would probably be the same for master students because they've studied human rights as well. They often work in think tanks or embassies, NGOs, also many in the public sector, like municipality and things like that. And it could be as consultants, communication, research, and some work in different research projects, and often with development as well. And then issues that is related to human rights.
Thank you. Osa?
Yes, I can only answer this question for 2 of our programs.
That's fine.
The European Master is quite easy. So the students there, that they end up in European Union institutions or NGOs or well, other research institutes or things like that. And it's within Europe, of course, but also outside, because even countries outside of Europe have their European Union office. So you can find different kind of jobs there. For the language and linguistics, we do not really know. We know that about 25% of our students end up as PhD students. So many of our students aim at that PhD from the beginning, but not all. And I know that I said before that you cannot become a teacher, but I know that many of our students, they work as teachers, not in the Swedish school, because that's where you need to have this teacher degree, but they work in like private companies as language teachers or things like that. We also have some people working as like language consultants or in technical areas where you use linguistics to, Google Translate and things like that. So, but we do not really know. We are trying to dig into it now to see what all the students are doing. And for the literature master, I'm sorry, but I know that many aim for the PhD in this master also, but I really can't say much about the others.
That's fine, thank you. It's still really helpful. And Anna?
Yeah, it's the same response as the other ones. We have students that end up with NGOs. I normally kind of think of the students of Master of Applied Cultural Analysis that there are some that they have a question or a perspective that they want to work with. It can be about gender questions or migration questions or democracy questions. That's always a kind of a group of students that have that. There's also a group of students that are more business and consumer interested, that sometimes they end up more likely in companies or in the private field, so to speak, working with different kind of consumption question. It can also be about waste as a part of consumption in the other end, so to speak. And also a thing that we didn't expect when we started this program, that it was that so many would like to continue with research. But it showed that we have quite a lot of students that wants to be PhD students, and they are quite successful in getting PhD positions all over the world. So that's a outcome that we didn't expect, actually. But also then in the public sphere, of course, working with questions like society and culture or stuff like that, and museums. If they have a background in ethnology and cultural analysis, it can also be about be in museums.
Brilliant. So a real range, basically. That's great. So now we're actually coming to the very end of our hour. It's flown by. And I just want to mention that if anybody watching this later on has any questions for us that haven't been answered, then you are really welcome to contact us. Tim will share in a second the general web form where you can contact my team. And then, of course, if you have questions for the specific programs, then you're very welcome to, again, look at the program pages and find the details of the program coordinator. I'm sure you guys are happy with that. And if not, if you contact us, we can always forward you to the right place or find the right information for you. So that's just a note there. And then I'd just like to invite all of you, if there's anything else that each of you would like to say, anything you want to highlight just in the last couple of seconds, please do feel free. Maybe we can just go around one more time and say anything that we want to just leave as a message to the students. So if we go back round from Anna.
I think just come to Lund, because I think it's a wonderful student city. Whatever you want to study, I think it's a great experience to be a student in Lund.
Perfect. Åsa?
Yes, no, I don't think I don't think I forgot anything specific. So just like Anna said, it's a nice student city, and both Sol and the Lux departments or the buildings are very nice places to be a student at. So well, we welcome your applications.
Yeah, we hope so. And Kristina?
I concur. Come to Lund, regardless of what you're going to study.
I can back up all of you on that as well. I had a wonderful time studying here. And yeah, so we really do hope to see some of you who are watching today or watching later on. We hope to see you join us. We hope to get your questions later. And thank you all of our panel for joining us today. And thank you everybody who watched this webinar. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.